Hello, good afternoon. One more session today. Today's a full day. One more session of Grandma's March. And today, right now, we have a very, very special guest. Her name is Miriam Willard McKenney. How are you? So good to see you here.
You too. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, this is a pleasure to have you here with us. And before we start, today has been like a full day, you know. So we
Yes.
started this morning at 9:30. Then we had Cheryl. I just had a lady from Argentina. Amazing stories, and I'm sure this one is going to be very special today. I want to introduce you first before we start. So Miriam, so I'm going to tell your name, Wheeler McKinney. Right? I said it right? I hope
That's
so. She's a storyteller, librarian, professor, lover of play, and evangelist of children books, which is that is so amazing. She is also a child of God who finds extreme joy parenting her three girls, Nia, who is 26, Kaia, 22, and Jaiya, right? I say it right, 18, with her husband David. Miriam was a children's librarian and school media specialist for 20 years before joining Forward's Movement's staff. She now works as Forward Movement's Director of Development and Mission Engagement. She loves nature and outdoor, I know that, fitness in extreme temperatures that I don't like. And there is no bad weather, just incorrect clothing choices. I love that. You always with your good sense of humor that I love. So, welcome, Miriam, today. This is the idea is to have a playful moment here because you know the theme today is for this year is that the grandmothers are reminding us that it's time to play, connect, and celebrate. And yeah, I want you to share whatever you feel like about your story. If there is any memories, connections to your ancestors, to your ancestrality, anything you want to bring, any memories or anything about even your childhood that you remember that connects you to what you do or your passion today. And then tell us more about what you do today in the world, what is your offering, and all your passion about children books. How is that? And then we can play with that a little bit because that definitely is going to connect everybody with that playful that adults need so much in these crazy times. So, yeah, let's go from there.
okay. I've been enjoying Grandma's March, and I've been listening even when it's in Spanish. I can understand a lot of things, and
That's so good.
Portuguese not as much, but still a little bit, comes
Mm-hmm.
through. So I've really enjoyed it. I was listening to your conversation with Cheryl earlier. And so I was thinking about, what do I have to say about, my story as it pertains to my grandmothers and as it also connects to the theme. And I realized, I don't really think about my grandmothers in the context of play
Mm-hmm.
because I know for them, just as African American women in this country and say at the time my parents were born, which was in the 30s, 1930s. So they were born in the, early part of 1900s. So there was not a whole lot of play going on
I
in
imagine.
their lives.
No,
And
no,
so,
difficult times actually. Yes,
right, it just
yes.
was not, there was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So in a big way, that taught me how important play is and how
Okay.
much I wanted to establish that with my daughters. Because even for me growing up, with my parents, our family dynamic was around work and
Got
chores
it.
and not so much play except for sports, which I didn't do a lot of that.
Got it.
But I can remember, that visiting my grandmother Jessie, who's my
Mm-hmm.
dad's mom. She lived in Charleston, West Virginia, and my granny, we called Jessie grandmommy, and my mom's mom, Minnie, we called her granny.
Okay.
And so them,
Yes.
they didn't really engage in a lot of play unless cooking is play. So then,
Mm-hmm.
definitely cooking was a big
Yes.
part of
And
things
it's
that.
not only place, connection as well. So
That's right.
yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. And
Connection and
celebration.
cooking.
And yes. Yes.
And my grandmother, my grandmommy Jessie, she was hilarious. She
Uh,
told stories and funny stories. You were never really ready for when was the joke going to come, and then it would just show up, and I can just remember a lot of laughter, just a lot of laughter at her house, and
I love that.
just between the cooking and her being so funny and her amazing stories, and she had 6 children.
Wow.
And so there was a lot there was a
A
lot
lot of people. Yeah.
a lot of people, but everybody moved away. So when we were
Okay.
there, it usually was just us, my
Oh,
dad,
that's
mom,
awesome.
my
Yeah.
brothers, and I. But then there were a lot of family, um, my dad's cousins and people around, so they would all come over, and so it would be a good time to connect. And that's definitely, the right word for thinking of those times of just being there. And I'll tell you another thing that I remember now that now that I'm thinking of her.
I like how
She
those memories come. Yes.
they do just show up, and that is, I
Mhm.
love that. She had this crystal dish on her coffee table that had buttermints in there. Do you know what buttermints are?
No.
They're like it's a candy type mint, and it's soft. It's hard, but
Okay.
it melts, on your tongue.
Got
And
it.
then pastel colors like yellow and pink and white and this, green, probably full of all kinds of artificial colors. But that's just something I remember of. I only had those at her house.
And
Yeah.
those that like your tongue then is like all colorful or not, not
Yes,
really?
it would be,
Yeah.
yellow or pink
Yeah,
or
got it.
green.
Okay.
And
That's
so
awesome. Got it.
those
Okay.
were good, and so it was always, but the dish made noise, so you couldn't sneak it unless you were really, really good at lifting the top and getting the
Got
food.
it. Yeah.
You had to
Yes.
put it down very, very carefully and slowly, or else, usually my mom would say, "Get out of that candy disher. Didn't you already have enough candy?" Oh my goodness. So, of course, my grandmother didn't care, that's what they were there
Right. Yeah, of course. They're
for.
grandchildren. That's
Those were
what grandmas do, right?
Yes, they provide the candy and your mom
Uh-huh.
shuts it down.
Yeah, yeah.
So, those were some, and she died when I was, 13. So a lot of those, memories, they're not always at the surface. They kind of drift up.
Mhm.
Something will remind me of being there. Another memory I have that is with me today is outside of her house, there were these, wires, the phone and
Got it.
electricity.
Yes, electricity one. Yeah.
And there would always be so many birds
Hmm.
on those lines. I remember sitting out in her front yard and looking at the birds and just thinking, "Where are all these birds coming from? There's so many." They would just be just out on that line, and I that was really the time that I began
Hmm.
to enjoy watching birds and watching their
Outdoors.
patterns and listen to them, and that is something I really, really love to do
Hmm.
now. I find a
Oh.
lot of peace in that, and I hadn't always connected doing that as a kid, uh, and particularly at her house, and then doing that now. But I
Hmm.
really do I love watching birds, and there's certain birds when they show up, I think, "Oh, that's so and so.
Uh-huh. Got it.
That's, this person." So, um, that's definitely a vivid memory, and one that I don't really even know why I don't know why I think about that, but
Yeah, because that's something that you like, and then you see you bring it. You're someone that loves being outdoors, and you like looking for that peace in nature. So that reminds you of that moment, of just being out
mm,
there and looking to the birds. So yeah.
Yes. Well, not having anything else to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I didn't have any, I was a kid, so I didn't have responsibilities and
There
concerns
you go.
and
Yeah, yeah. And
anything.
those are the simple, like the simple things that I'm trying like to bring here to this space, because those are the simple things that sometimes we forget. It's so simple as just going outside and watch the birds or nature, and that's a connection. That's
Mhm.
yeah.
It is. My other grandmother, Minnie, who we called Granny,
Mm-hmm.
she definitely was not a playful
I love
Grandmommy
that.
was more
There's
so.
all kinds of stories with grandmothers.
That's right. But
Yeah.
she was a woman who, you know, she had a challenging life. And so she lived in Kentucky. She was a domestic for a family
Yes.
who, it wasn't just that she cleaned their house and cooked, but she also really 2 generations, she cared for the children of that family.
Mm. Wow.
First, the children and then grandchildren of this family. So she lived in this little house that they had built for her in the back of their big house.
Yes.
And so when we would go in the summer, she had, there were 2 bedrooms in this little house. There was, a living room, her bedroom, a guest bedroom, and the kitchen and the bathroom. No basement. That was
Okay.
it. But there
Mm-hmm.
was a storeroom that was between her house and what they called the big house, literally.
Okay. Yes.
So we would
Mhm.
go she would send us out there to play, and it was a storeroom, so there were all kinds of toys and just all kinds of stuff for us to get into, and I think about the fact that she never supervised us in there. She didn't come in there to see what we were doing. She just she would just in there.
Well, that's good.
It was good because we needed that, but,
Mhm.
so that is what I think about, and sh there was a big yard and a swing set and a kind of a playground, and so my brothers would play out there a lot, but I was more of an observer,
Mhm.
and I would sort of hang with Granny and just listen to her or just be with her. She didn't I don't know, she didn't share a lot. She's like my mom in that,
Mm.
my mom didn't do a whole lot of storytelling and sharing, but she liked to be with you, that's she liked
Got
to
it.
be around, and so
Mhm.
it's a lot about silence and about
Mm.
stories of the heart that I think about
Mm.
with.
I love that. Yeah, because sometimes it's just the presence that is there, and that's all you need,
Mhm.
and the silence.
Yeah.
And you are someone that respects and the silence, that like that space of silence, and then you see why it's there, and it's so necessary. It's
It is. It is because, that's how if you're constantly talking and listening to people talk, there's a lot of things that you can't hear,
right.
and you need silence and time
Mhm.
to then hear it, you know, not just in your ears, but in your mind and in your heart, in your
Mm.
soul and in your body.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
silence is important for that kind of listening.
Oh.
So,
Hmm. Yeah, those are special memories. Thank you for bringing those up. Yeah, yeah.
and I will also share, I know I heard you earlier talking, some folks had, and I know your pieces behind you there and people in your family. So I was thinking, what do I have here? From my
Yes.
grandmothers, and of course, how something big is just right here in your face, and
Uh-huh.
you think,
You don't see it?
"This is where I am sitting," and you were just at my house, and I know there's a lot going on in my living room, but the desk that's right near the door, that was my grandmother's desk, and
Oh,
so this is where I'm sitting right now. It's a secretary, so it's got the fold down
got
desk
it.
with
Yes, like
drawers.
the old ones, like you feel like yes, yes, yes. I
That
love
was
that.
yours.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was showing, I'm sitting in my grandma's chair. So yeah,
Mhm.
yes.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love being connected to her. And the family that she worked for they had a furniture business.
Hmm.
So she had this beautiful furniture in her house. And so I got this desk, which I loved this desk, and it was in the guest bedroom. So a lot of times when I visited, it depended, but usually I slept with her, and my brother slept in the guest room, or my parents would sleep in there, and they'd sleep on the pull-out couch in the living room. But I loved this desk, and I didn't say, Granny, when you die, I want this desk, but
Mm.
she knew that I loved it and that I wanted it. My parents and my aunt knew that. And then I also got her furniture from her bedroom. So up in my bedroom is her furniture. And then we also got, I don't know, we were the repository for everybody's furniture when they died. And so we
Good.
have my other grandmother's furniture from her bedroom. So my dad has some of it, and we have a couple pieces of that. So we do have a lot um, of their pieces, and I think
Yes.
wood. Wood is that type of material that it's got. It can carry you in it. You
Yes.
can
Yeah.
be in that
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. And it longs like how do you say, like it goes through time, because it's resistant. So it's like, no, it's not something you break and it's plastic or whatever. It's
Right.
something that is there, and it's almost like you have the energy of these people in here, in this furniture. That's amazing because it's a natural material, of course, and that makes it special also. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And that's like a favorite spot for you, like sitting, I imagine, in that desk. So much of your magic happens in there, creativity and everything, right?
I do like this desk, and then I live in the house that I grew up in.
Uh-huh.
So there's definitely, since I was almost 6, 5. I mean, obviously, I haven't lived here the entire time, but my dad handed it down to us, and when he moved, he just wanted to keep it in the family, and so there's a lot of ghosts here.
I love that. Good spirit are there for sure. We never know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So tell us about, continue with your story, all
Mm.
about this storyteller, librarian, the children books. Where is
Ah,
that coming from? And
okay.
yes.
So one thing about my parents that I'm so thankful for
Hmm.
is that they both my mom was a nurse. She died in 2001, in August of 2001. And my dad is still living. He just turned 85 a few days ago, and he is an Episcopal priest. So they both really believed that it was important for my brothers and I to have books around us. And
Hmm.
they both love to read, and they had a lot of books. But they, thinking of children's books, they wanted us to have books where we saw ourselves in the stories.
Hmm. Wow.
And so I can remember books. I still have, a good amount of those books. That's what happens when your your parents leave you the house and all that stuff is still here. So there's a lot of books from my childhood, and one in particular that I have here is called "The Snowy Day" by Ezra Jack Keats. I'll just hold it up real quick.
Yes.
So this was a book. I won't read it yet, but I will later. So
Okay.
"Snowy Day" by
Snowy
Ezra Jack
day.
Keats, and it's about this little boy who plays in the snow.
Hmm.
And so I can remember reading that book and just understanding that this is a book with a little black boy and he's playing in the snow. It didn't have anything to do with him being black. None of that had, it was a story.
Yeah.
And it was different from a lot of the other books that had African American characters in there because a lot of times those did have something to do with being Black or being different or like being proud, which, all of that is
Mm-hmm.
important. But it's also important to understand that those things don't always have to be important. And that, I think, is what really got me. This book in particular was what planted that seed of love that grew into a passion for picture books in particular, because picture books have a way of teaching. They can be fun, they can be funny, they can be serious, they can be sad. You get all the range of emotions in the story, and then you also get the art. And so
Mm-hmm. I
I
like.
think it's just this really beautiful combination. And I've always loved to read them all through, high school and in college and in library school. I never have been separated from picture books, and I never had the idea that I needed to be done with them. I always felt like, why do we put picture books over here and say they're for this age of kid and this age of kid? They are really for everyone. It's not like an 8-year-old made that book. A grown man wrote that story.
Did it right, and that story is inside the grown man. Yes,
Yes.
that's perfect. Yes.
So that's what has really connected me to it. But, so I
Wow.
worked at the library when I was in high school and in college. And then I went to library school right out of college and was a librarian at the University of Michigan. I went to University of Michigan for graduate school, and then I stayed there. And I love being a librarian because not just for the books, that's a big part of it, but it's also about the library being a place where people can go and be, and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to buy anything. They can just be there. And it's a place where you can get help. You can get your questions answered. You can meet with a friend. You can get tutoring or give tutor. There's so many different kinds of things that go on at the library, and it's a justice thing for me as well. It's free and public to
Yes.
any and everyone. And I really love that. And I love being a part of that. So that's where my passion is around books and words and libraries in particular.
I love that, and definitely I can picture you in those spaces, and the silence also of the library is that is so peaceful and is restful and is yeah, and also is like a mystery place because you can find all these kind of things that you don't know what is the next thing that you're gonna find there. Or mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's something we all need to connect more because public libraries are there for us everywhere, and I'm not sure people are using those, and that's a way to connect and to play and to create
Yeah,
spaces, and it's for free. So it's like you don't have to buy anything, you don't have to have money, just yeah, just create the space. Hmm.
that's right. So a lot of the fun that I've had at the library and my personal experiences, when I lived in New Jersey, we had this program there that this woman did. I mean, when I was working in New Jersey, I was, 20, I don't know, 25 or so, and I had just gotten married, or I was about to get married actually. And this woman was doing this story time with babies. And I thought, wow, all right, that's something I've never seen before. And so I went and observed her do that. And I thought, okay, I kind of like what she's doing. I would maybe do it a little differently than that, but it was cool. So then when I got here to Cincinnati a couple years later, and I had my own babies when Nia was, around 18 months or so. And I said, I'm going to start this program here in this library system. Now in Cincinnati, our library is, we have a main library downtown, and then we've got about 40 branches. So it's a pretty good sized system. And people were like, I don't know what you're talking about. We can't do that. And I was working in the children's department at the time. So I thought, Sure, I can do
Why
it.
not?
I
Right.
mean, my boss was on board, so um, I said, okay, I'm going to just start it. And so every Saturday for about a year, I would do this babies program. I mean, I can't even explain to you how life-giving it is to be around a lot of babies. You know, 1
Wow.
is great, like 3 is excellent, but just imagine 20 babies and
Wow.
their adult being in this room, and I've got some toys and some different things. And, sometimes they're with parents, sometimes a caregiver, sometimes a grandma, dad, whomever, is just whomever had that baby that day would bring those babies. And I mean, it definitely was, those were some of the best hours, of my week, by far. Just to be around all of that good, juicy energy,
Mm,
that baby energy. Like,
got it.
babies are just pure joy and light. I mean, even with the stinky diapers and the crying, a lot of
Yes.
things people wanna say about babies, but, like, with all of that, babies are so life-giving, and so I loved doing that a lot. And so it spread, like, after some time, people were like, "Show us how to do that." And so I started teaching people, and so now there's a lot of the branches here in town that have the baby
How they
program.
do it? Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
So
Wow.
that was a lot of fun, and I really miss it a lot. I miss it a
Mm,
lot.
yes.
And then, the other thing that I did, that was fun, I mean, I did toddlers, I did preschoolers, and explorers club for older kids where we would read stories and do activities. And I just love doing those kinds of projects. Like I've said to you, I'm not a visual artist in the sense of, I can't draw. I'm not great at creating art. I make jewelry and I can do that kind of
Mhm.
thing. But I can I can lead a project, and we can, when I have a book to explain how to do it, I can show other people how to do it. So there's something magical about making things with kids, because
Mm,
they don't have the presence of mind to doubt themselves. They just do it.
mhm,
So I love
mhm,
to affirm that what they're doing is great. And reading books with kids and talking about it and wondering about it and picking your favorite part of the story and your favorite picture. I mean, those are just memories that I really, really treasure. And that's the experience I had with my daughters. And so it just has been a gift and just keeps giving, because I still have all of those memories in my heart.
Oh, I love that. I love that. How juicy that sounds, and being around those kids. And I was just talking to this lady from Argentina that she is
Mhm.
an actress and teacher for theater. And she says the same. For her, it's the connection with the kids that makes the total difference, because she doesn't even know why, but she's like, yeah, it's so much fun. And also the feeling that you are contributing to someone's education for the future, and contributing for these kids, but also the energy you receive from them. It is
Yes.
amazing, and we all forget that is sometimes it's there for free. If we don't have kids like me, we have our nephews or our neighbors, or you can go to some place, because kids bring you that innocence. They bring you that those questions sometimes that are like, what? This is amazing, or some
Yes.
comments, and yes, yes, it's amazing. Yeah.
I find, and so that when I was teaching, and being the library teacher, the greatest part about that was that, I could say to those kids, this is about you. This is not about, I don't know, math, or, I mean, because there is math. It's because of the Dewey Decimal System, and the books are arranged in a certain type of way, and you have to figure
Right.
that out. You have to learn that. But ultimately, the library is about the individual, and also the group, but it's about your interest. It's about what you want to read. It's about what you want to know. I'm not making them choose anything in particular. I'm not saying to them, you have to get a book on snakes today. No, they can get a book on whatever they want. And when their teacher would come to me and say, well, I think this particular kind of book, I don't think this is appropriate. And I'd say, well, isn't it great that I'm the librarian and I don't tell them that they can't have that? And you're the teacher in their classroom and you get to manage that. So here in the library, I don't censor what they choose. If a
Right.
first grader chooses Harry Potter,
There you
they
go.
get to have it. They get to have it.
Yes.
So I felt the best working with kids. I feel like that's my true, that's my spirit work, is to
Yes.
be with children and let children know as an adult, to let them know you can trust me and
Mm,
I love you and I'm here for you to be you.
yes.
And that's it.
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful. Oh, and now it's taking me to that other, I don't know how to call it, maybe passion dream that you have, is to take these children books for adults, because I
Yes.
think that's what we all need in this world now, is connecting to that playing and that connection to the childhood and the dreaming and the innocence, and connecting to the heart, to who we really are at the end, and I find though that so amazing, because it's like, wow. And what you just, like, we were just talking here, but what you just say is like, who wrote those stories? We're grown up men or women. So it's like, what? Of course, we never. It's like, no, you never think about, no, those are children books. I'm an adult that does not. This is not for me, but of course it is for us. And I was talking also to someone, I don't know, about like Disney movies. And some people say, well, those are not even for children. Those are more like for adults. Of course, because they are made by adults. And yes, they are a lot more for adults than for children, believe me, because there are so many messages that we all need there. So, yes. So tell us about
Yes.
that.
Well, yes, it's so funny you mentioned the Disney movies. My husband loves Disney movies. And one
Mm.
of the first dates we went on this was back in the 80s, when I went to visit him. And we went to see 101 Dalmatians in the theater. And he tried to pretend that we had some kids that we were trying to find. I was like, why are you trying to pretend? You're here. I'm here because
I
you
know,
want
who
to do
cares?
this. So don't try to anyway. But they're also based on fairy tales, which were adult stories.
Right. There
Like
you go.
bad things
Yeah.
happen. Disney had to fix a lot of that so
Yeah.
people didn't get depressed. Well, anyway, yes, I have been doing this work, and particularly in the area of racial reconciliation and
Mm.
healing, and also teaching around things that people didn't learn in school, so that they can have a better understanding about some of the reasons why this work is so important. And I find with picture books, for all the reasons I've already said, you have the art, you have the story, and plus it's short. It's typically 32
Mm.
pages and not a full page of text.
That's good.
You can read it in a few minutes. But then what I do is, we read a story, and then, what I call, we re-enter the story. We start from the very front, and then we go through each page and talk about what's happening here, what's going on here, how does this make you feel? What do you love about this? What's
Mm.
something that makes you feel? So we can explore all of those kinds of questions as kids and as adults, and also kids and adults together. That is another great thing about
Mm.
using picture books
I
with adults,
like that.
because you can have kids there and everybody has something to enjoy and experience from it. Just like those Disney movies,
Yeah.
Disney figured out kids aren't going to the movies by themselves, they're not driving themselves to the theater, and so it has to be enjoyable for adults, or else
Yes.
it's not going to work. So um, one story that, and I think I can share my screen on here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So when when you were here in Cincinnati a few days ago, just for a couple of hours, we went to the Ohio River, and we talked about, what's the significance of the Ohio River. And there are people who live, so the Ohio River connects It's the what do you call it? Boundary of the state of Ohio to the state of Kentucky, also West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Some rivers that come from Pennsylvania connect to at the start of the Ohio River. And the Ohio River is what separates in the United States the North from the South. So in the
Okay.
times of people being enslaved in this country, if you were seeking freedom during those times and you were coming north through Kentucky
Yeah.
or Indiana, or well, yeah, you had to cross the Ohio River.
Mhm.
And so people would swim across, they might get a raft across,
Yeah.
but then you were in the north, but you still weren't safe. And so there's a lot to think about with the river. So one of my favorite poets is Langston Hughes. And Langston Hughes wrote a poem in 1920, right after he was out of high school and he was on a train going to visit his dad, who lived in Mexico, Mexico City.
Wow.
And so he was looking at the Mississippi River, which is a similar kind of river.
Okay. They are
Um,
not connected. It's just different, right? Yeah. Like
I couldn't
yeah, the
even,
geography doesn't. Yeah.
I guess they're not, but it could be that something that flows from the Ohio goes, I would need
Got
to
it.
look that up.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
great with
We
that.
can look at that after. Okay.
But it's the same idea of it was
Yes.
separating the North and the
Yes.
South, and there were things going on. So there's this poem that he wrote called "The Negro Speaks of Rivers," that was turned into a picture book by a man named E.B. Lewis.
Okay.
Well, I blanked on his last name for a moment. And so I want to share this story. Is this the time where I share a story?
Oh yeah. This
Okay,
is the
okay.
time.
Okay. So
Anytime is the time. Yes, this
let
is
me
the
see
time.
if I can do this. Wait a minute. So do I go down here to share?
Yeah, you can click there in share, and I think you can share there your share screen if you want, or
Okay.
I don't know if it's slides, whatever you
It's
feel.
a it's a it's a screen, but let
Yeah,
me
share
see.
the screen, and then you
Share the
can share
screen.
from there. We don't have no rules here, so
Okay. Um, but the screen I want to share isn't this screen. Let me see. Window. Ah, here we go. Okay, okay. Good. I think it's this one. Nope, it's this one. Okay, got it. All right. So hopefully you can see this book.
I can see it. Wow,
Okay.
Langston Hughes, the Negro
Yes.
Speaks of Rivers. Okay,
Right.
I
And
love the
then
picture actually. Yeah.
okay, good. So I have the sound turned off because I'm going to read it, but I couldn't put my hands on my copy of the book, so I fortunately was able to find this.
Hmm.
It's a little easier to see this way. So this is The Negro Speaks of Rivers by Langston Hughes, illustrated by E.B. Lewis.
Wow.
I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world, and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. So before I unshare my favorite picture, I have a couple, but this one reminds me a lot of my grandmother. This woman's face and the way that the lines are around her eyes, um, and just her soft hair her mouth, really the mouth is probably the thing that most reminds me of my granny. And I think about this woman and I think about what was she doing? Is she looks like she's just coming out of the water,
Yeah.
from being in the water. And so I also love uh, this one of this boy, looks like a teenager to me. And I think about, we were sitting there looking at the river and watching boats go by. And, think about, I would never get in that water. But in these times, you could be in there in the water.
Got it.
And, it was at worst muddy, but it wasn't polluted. And
Mhm.
so just doing all of that. And so just all of these thoughts about things that people do all around the world near rivers. It's that spirit of connection that we have with each other, and how we are connected to previous generations through our waterways and through our rivers. So there's just a lot about that book that I love, and I love Langston Hughes's poetry. He was just a gifted writer and somebody who I really look up to.
Hmm.
And so I really love that story.
Wow, that is so. That is a children's story.
Yes.
Holy cow! That is
Yeah.
so. Wow.
You see, there's a
Wow.
lot to talk about with
Yes,
adults that you
so
couldn't talk
that's
about
no,
with
that's so
kids.
deep. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I'm crying here, all emotional because like you said, the words, it's just few words. It's the images are just like stunning. And wow.
Right.
And we adults are missing that. It's like, look at that. We are.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. And so, you know, I think a lot of adults don't always think about what's possible with children's books.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
and maybe a lot of kids, there's some kids, because when I taught a children's literature class at Xavier University here in Cincinnati, and I asked the students to think about the books that they read when they were younger, and um, they hadn't thought about it in a long time. Which for them is, they're 19, 20, most of them were 20, 21, 22. But even so, like thinking of 15 years ago or 18 years ago, and then when they do, they're they were really surprised at the feelings that come with that, but then also the new feelings that they can have because they're adults now, new adults, but they can appreciate the books in another way.
Wow.
So it was
Yeah.
it was a really great experience. So and then so I'm just going to show this one because just for those of you out there who, where is it? um ah a lot of Langston Hughes poetry have been turned into picture books, and this one is called That Is My Dream. Langston Hughes wrote a lot of poems about dreams, and I used to read them with my students. My favorite one, it's not a picture book. Somebody needs to do that. But just the whole idea of dreams, and particularly birds. Another thing about birds as it pertains to people in general is the thing that birds do that people wish they could do is fly.
Oh
So
yeah.
when you're talking about people who were enslaved, or
Mm.
if you're in any kind of captivity, birds then have a symbolism of
Freedom.
yes. And so
Mm.
birds and dreams also are very connected
Mm.
because
Mm.
your dreams are things that are floating, on clouds. And one of my favorite Langston Hughes poems is Dream Keeper. Bring me all of your dreams, you dreamers. Bring me, let me think. Bring me all of your dreams, you dreamers. Bring me all of your dreams so I may wrap them in the blue cloud cloth, safe from the too rough fingers of the world.
Wow.
So just, you can imagine, we would talk about what's this, the blue cloud cloth, what do you think that is? And what do you see, when you hear that? And so the poems really lend themselves to being turned into picture books. So
Wow.
it's
Wow.
fun.
Wow.
Those are adult poems. They're adult.
Yeah, they're adult poems,
Mm-hmm.
adult stories into children books, full of
Right.
images, beautiful images. Oh my God. Yes.
So I guess just to bring it all the way back to my childhood,
Yes, it's Snowy
Valerie,
Day.
this is my favorite story.
I love it.
When
Let's
people
do it.
say to me, well, Miss Miriam, kids would call me Miss Miriam, what's your favorite book?
Yeah.
It's hard to have a favorite. Just like, as a parent, I shouldn't have a favorite child, and I don't. And I don't have a favorite book, but I do. And
Yes.
it's this.
Got
And
it.
so this is the 50th anniversary edition that I got. I don't even remember, but this book came out in I think, let me not guess. I want to say 1970, but I think it was earlier than that, 1962. So before I was born.
Wow. Wow. Got it.
So this one has some extra stuff in the back because this book won the Caldecott medal. So it's special for that too. So let me make
Oh,
sure.
wow.
Okay, good.
Beautiful illustrations. Look at that.
Yes. So, okay, I'll say this. I thought Ezra Jack Keats was Black for years until I was an adult and I was a children's librarian. And then I read something about him and I was like, he's white?
The one that wrote the book?
The one that wrote the book is white.
No
And he wrote this
kidding.
book. He had an image.
Wow, that is amazing too.
I
Like
thought
that.
so.
Yes.
So he had this picture. It's back here. So, okay. This little boy here,
Inspiring this little boy.
he was in Life magazine and he he loved this child. He just fell in love with this little boy. And this was in 1940. And he put this little strip on his bulletin board. And he said, one day I'm going to tell this little boy's story. I'm going to tell a story with this little boy. And this is the boy.
Wow.
This is
Wow.
the inspiration. And so he told this is one. And so this is one story. And then there's many other stories with this little boy in it. His name is Peter. So
Wow.
there's Peter's chair and there's other.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Okay, so here we go. One winter morning, Peter woke up and looked out the window. Snow had fallen during the night. It covered everything as far as he could see. After breakfast, he put on his snowsuit and ran outside. The snow was piled up very high along the street to make a path for walking. Crunch, crunch, crunch. His feet sank into the snow. He walked with his toes pointing out like this. He walked with his toes pointing in like that. Then he dragged his feet slowly to make tracks. And he found something sticking out of the snow that made a new track. It was a stick that was just right for smacking a snow-covered tree. Hold on. Oh, yeah, there we go. Down fell the snow, plop, on top of Peter's head. He thought it would be fun to join the big boys in their snowball fight, but he knew he wasn't old enough. Not yet. So he made a smiling snowman, and he made angels. He pretended he was a mountain climber. He climbed up a great, big, tall, heaping mountain of snow. and slid all the way down. He picked up a handful of snow, and another, and still another. He packed it round and firm, and put the snowball in his pocket for tomorrow. Then he went into his warm house. He told his mother all about his adventures while she took off his wet socks. And he thought and thought and thought about them. Before he got into bed, he looked in his pocket. His pocket was empty. The snowball wasn't there. He felt very sad. While he slept, he dreamed that the sun had melted all the snow away. But when he woke up, his dream was gone. The snow was still everywhere. New snow was falling. After breakfast, he called to his friend from across the hall, and they went out together into the deep, deep snow.
Oh my God.
And so, this being the 50th anniversary edition, here is Ezra Jack Keats.
Wow.
In his studio.
Oh, how lovely. With the picture of the kid he was inspired.
Mm-hmm. And so just to connect everything, here is a letter from Langston Hughes that he wrote to the editor saying, "The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats is a perfectly charming little book. I wish I had some grandchildren to give it to. Yes, I do. Sincerely, Langston Hughes." So those are the kinds of things that
Wow.
make me know that I'm in the right
Yes.
place with this
Yes.
work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's so deep. I love that story. How is about a kid being a kid, but
Yes.
it's so much in that because it's like exploring the whole world and wondering about things and dreaming about things and touching and playing and oh my
Mhm.
God.
Another thing that was special about that book is there were a lot of books, and there still are a lot of books that have to do with, kids in a situation where maybe they didn't have both parents at home. And in these stories, Peter has a mom, he has a dad.
Yeah.
Peter's chair is about how he has this little blue chair, and his parents paint the chair pink because he's gonna have
Wow.
a little sister. And
Oh,
he
that is so
like that.
cute. I
He's
love
mad about that, and so it's all about
it.
that. So it was really important that kids see that there are intact, like families that, like my family, I had both my parents, and it's important for Black kids to see that, and it's important for all kids to see that. It's important for white kids to see that
Yes.
um, that that kind of family existed. So
Wow. Wow. What a gift. What a gift. And so many more adults and kids definitely will need to hear these books from from you with your voice and connecting them to their hearts and to that playfulness and to something deeper in such a simple and beautiful way. What what a gift you are, and such an amazing magic you bring to this world. And yes, I want to make sure that at least more adults, because kids, yes, they will have the opportunities, but we adults, we need to get in touch with that. And
yeah,
that's all about this. It's about that playing and the connection and celebration of life with the simple little things, like a children's book.
Well, and you are magic in creating this event and honoring our elders and our ancestors and giving us the opportunity, all of us who've participated, to share these stories and be together in this way. I'm so appreciative of you, your spirit. I really am. I'm so
Mm,
thankful to know you.
thank you. Yeah, I guess I just received the call and I'm here just doing what I need to do because
Yeah.
it's not me, it's them talking to us for sure that it's time for this. Yeah,
Not everybody picks up the phone when the
I
call comes
know.
in.
I
So
know
let's
that.
just come on now.
I did it and still it's like, okay, what about this? But I'm here. I show up and magic is happening. So,
Yes.
wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, my dear sister, thank you for the gift
Yes.
you are to the world and hope for many more things together. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you. And let's keep connected and have an amazing rest of day.
You
Okay.
too.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everyone.